She stared at the name at the bottom of the resume, and for a second, her hands froze. It was him. The man who told her she wasn't cost-effective. The same man who fired her in front of HR like it was a spreadsheet correction. Now he was asking her for a job, practically begging, and had no idea whose desk his resume had landed on. This story will take you through a shocking firing, a bold restart, and a comeback that no one, especially not her old boss, ever saw coming. You'll see how one woman turned rejection into power and held it in her hands when it mattered most. At the end, there's a little quiz. How many times did we mention the name Samantha Lee? It's just for fun and our way of saying thanks for watching closely and spotting the subtle moments others might miss. Be the first to answer. Don't let someone else steal your spotlight. Before we dive in, if this story moves you, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, hit like, subscribe now, and turn on the bell to keep the stories coming your way. Samantha Lee gave that company everything. Late nights, early flights, and endless weekends buried in pitch decks and revenue projections. She was the reason they landed 2 of their biggest clients. She cut costs by 20% in one fiscal year, and still, they let her go. "You're just not affordable anymore," her boss said, avoiding eye contact. It's a strategic move. Samantha Lee walked out of that boardroom with her head high and her stomach in knots. She didn't even get to say goodbye to her team. Just a cardboard box, an automated exit email, and a drive home in silence. For 3 weeks, she shut out the world. Her apartment, once filled with color and plants, felt like a cage. She'd wake up, stare at her ceiling, and wonder if maybe they were right. Was she too much? Too senior? Too expensive? Too outspoken? But Samantha wasn't built to stay broken. She picked herself up and turned her severance into seed funding. She'd always had a vision, a boutique consulting firm that helped women-led startups scale without burning out. So she built it. From scratch. One call, one coffee shop meeting, one contract. 6 months in, Samantha Lee Consulting had 5 full-time employees and a waiting list of clients. She leased an office downtown, painted it coral and cream, and hung up the words, "Built, not bought." Then came the day she opened her inbox. Subject line, Director of Strategic Operations Application. She skimmed the resume, stopped, scanned again. Michael Trent, her old boss, the man who fired her to cut costs. Now, he wanted in. His cover letter spoke of reinvention, of seeking meaningful work, of collaborating with passionate leaders. Samantha leaned back in her chair, the hum of the city below barely audible over the rush of irony. He had no idea who she'd become, no idea that the company he was now applying to was hers. Samantha Lee closed the laptop gently, smiled, and whispered, "Let's see how affordable I am now." She didn't delete the email. She didn't forward it to HR. She didn't even flag it for review. Instead, she left it sitting in her inbox, like a coffee cup left half full, waiting. For days, she went about her business like it didn't exist. Morning calls with West Coast clients, strategy meetings with new founders, checking in on payroll, deliverables, and the podcast her marketing intern insisted they launch. But the name stayed lodged in her brain like a pebble in her heel. Michael Trent. Not Mike, not Mr. Trent, not that guy from corporate, but the man who once told her, in front of an entire boardroom, that she lacked business empathy. Samantha remembered that day too well. How she'd fought for a parental leave policy that wouldn't hurt contractors. How he'd said, "We're not a charity, Samantha." And how her cheeks burned, not from shame, but from the realization that she had no power. Not back then, but now, she had the whole building. A week later, she called an internal meeting. Small, private, just the leadership team. They met in the back conference room, the one with the chalkboard wall that still had a sketch of last quarter's growth curve. She placed Michael's resume in the center of the table. Didn't say a word. Just let it sit there. Her operations lead, Priya, raised an eyebrow. "This is the Michael Trent?" Samantha nodded slowly. "You're kidding," said James from Partnerships. "As in, your old boss?" "Yep." Silence. Then a low whistle from the marketing lead. "He's got some nerve." Samantha leaned back, arms folded. "He doesn't know I run this place." That was true. Her company wasn't called Lee Enterprises or anything traceable. She was never the face of it. She made sure of that. The website mentioned her once on the About page in third person. "Should we call him in?" Priya asked, cautious. James frowned. "Why even entertain it? He's toxic." Samantha tapped the table once. "Because I want to see him, face to face. I want to know if anything's changed." When he walked into the office 3 days later, he had no idea. He was taller than she remembered, or maybe just older. Hair more gray than silver, the edges of his mouth lined deeper than before. He wore the same kind of suit, though, expensive, pressed, and a half-inch too arrogant. He greeted the receptionist with a smile that probably worked on everyone but her. Then he was led to the interview room. One-way glass, clean table, 2 chairs. Standard. Samantha didn't go in right away. She stood behind the glass for a moment, watching. He sat with legs crossed, glancing around like he belonged there. Like he still ran things. Like the fall hadn't hit him hard enough. When she finally entered, his eyes widened. Just slightly. Enough for her to see the flicker of recognition, the math happening in his head. But he didn't let it show. Didn't stand up. "Ms. Lee," he said, cool as ever. "Pleasure to meet you." Samantha sat, crossed her legs, tilted her head. "You know," she said, "I almost didn't recognize you without the boardroom behind you." He blinked. Once. But the smirk stayed. "I didn't realize you were leading this firm. Impressive." "You didn't realize I'd survive," she said, deadpan. Another pause. Then, "You were always talented, Samantha. That was never the issue." Oh, that tone. Polished, slippery. The same one he used the day he handed her the HR envelope, the one that wrapped a dagger in compliments. She smiled, not kindly. "So, you're looking to collaborate with passionate leaders now?" she said, quoting from his letter. He folded his hands. "I'm looking for a clean slate. I've had a humbling year." She didn't believe him, not because people couldn't change, but because he never did. Back then, compromise was beneath him. Empathy was weakness, and she, just overhead. They sat in that room for nearly 40 minutes. Not an interview, a reckoning. He pitched ideas, talked about scalability, transformation, leadership under pressure. He used all the right buzzwords, but Samantha watched closely for the thing he didn't say. There was no apology, no reflection. "No, I shouldn't have treated you that way." Just ambition, dressed in new colors. Same game, new mask. She stood at the end, extending a hand just to watch him take it. "I'll be in touch," she said. He nodded, and that old grin crept back. Looking forward to it. Later that evening, she sat in her office, staring out the window as the sun dropped behind the buildings. Priya knocked gently before stepping in. "Well?" Samantha didn't turn around. "I wanted to see if he'd changed." And she closed her eyes. Same man, just unemployed. Priya stepped beside her, quiet. "Then we're passing, right?" But Samantha didn't answer. Not yet. Because something gnawed at her, not regret, not guilt. Something worse. She remembered what it was like to walk into interviews and see faces that already made up their minds. She remembered being passed over for men with less experience and more excuses. She remembered thinking, If I ever get the chance to lead, I'll be better. And now, here she was, holding a man's fate in her inbox. 2 weeks passed. No offer was made. No rejection sent, just silence. Until the letter came, mailed, not emailed, signed by hand. Dear Samantha, I knew the moment I saw your name that the power had shifted. You earned it. I didn't see it before, but I do now. You don't owe me anything. I just wanted to say, I'm glad you made it. And I hope, sincerely, that I do too one day. Michael. She read it twice, then placed it in her desk drawer. Didn't tear it up, didn't frame it, just kept it, like a scar. Not because it healed, but because it reminded her why she built everything from scratch, and why she would never run her company the way he ran his. That Friday, her team gathered for lunch. Rooftop barbecue, cold drinks, music drifting from a Bluetooth speaker. Laughter filled the air. No stiff suits, no fear of layoffs, just people who believed in each other. Someone handed her a burger. Someone else asked about the next expansion. And for a moment, she forgot about Michael Trent, forgot about the box she carried out of her old office, forgot about the hallway stairs, the severance call, the sting. Until James came up beside her and said, "You know he's applied again, right?" Her smile faded. Different role, smaller, more junior, like he's hoping to slide in unnoticed. She didn't say anything, just turned her face toward the skyline. But inside, a decision was forming, not whether to hire him, but whether she had to become like him to win. And the terrifying part? She wasn't sure anymore. That question hung over Samantha Lee like morning fog, light at first, then thick, almost suffocating. It followed her into team meetings. It whispered at her while she reviewed quarterly reports. It crept in during moments when she should have been proud, when a new client signed on, or when someone called her an inspiration. Because behind every decision she made now, there was a quiet voice asking, "Is this what Michael Trent would do? And if it is, should I stop? Or should I keep going?" 2 weeks later, she sat across from Priya in a coffee shop 2 blocks from their office. They often held one-on-ones here, neutral ground, no whiteboards, no office politics. But today felt heavier. Priya sipped slowly from her mug, watching Samantha's fingers drum the ceramic cup. "You've been distracted," she said gently. Samantha didn't deny it. She just looked out the window at the afternoon bustle. "I keep thinking about the things I said I'd never do," she finally murmured. "Like what?" "Like let someone into this company if they don't align with our values. Like ever doubting myself again. Like wondering if the only way to be powerful is to play their game." Priya set her cup down. "You're not him, Sam." "But what if I'm close?" she whispered. "I ignored 5 great applicants last month just because I was trying to make a point. I've been delaying hiring decisions, tightening policies, questioning loyalty. I'm not sure if I'm protecting what I built or just trying to prove I'm better than him." Priya was quiet for a moment, then leaned in. "Maybe it's not about being better than Michael. Maybe it's about being you and figuring out what that actually means, now that you have power." Samantha didn't respond, because that was the part she hadn't figured out. Not yet. 3 days later, she found herself in the stairwell, the one that ran behind the glass elevators. She used it when she needed to think, when the office felt too loud, too curated. Halfway up the steps, she stopped. She was holding Michael Trent's second application in her hand. This time, the cover letter was shorter. No buzzwords, no branding, just one line at the bottom. "I'll take whatever seat you have left." And for some reason, that hit harder than any of his polished words ever did. It sounded honest, maybe desperate, or maybe just smart. But the question it raised in her chest wasn't about him anymore. It was about her. Was she capable of giving someone like that a second chance, without betraying the woman she was when he first fired her? That night, Samantha sat alone at her dining table, laptop open, wine untouched. She pulled up the old exit email from her final day at Michael's firm. She'd never deleted it. "We appreciate your contributions to the organization. This decision is purely financial in nature and does not reflect your performance." She remembered crying in her car that day, not because she lost the job, but because she lost the illusion that being good at her work was enough. Now here she was, CEO, founder, leader. And she was still carrying that moment like a stone in her pocket. She closed the laptop, not out of clarity, but exhaustion. Some wounds didn't bleed anymore. They just kept aching when the weather changed. At the Monday all-hands meeting, something shifted. Not visibly, not dramatically, but the mood felt tighter, less collaborative. 2 mid-level managers had resigned the week before, citing misalignment in growth strategy. One client had pushed back on a contract renegotiation Samantha had demanded, saying her tone had become rigid. Even James, usually the most easygoing person on the team, had started asking subtle questions. About processes, about transparency, about her. And Samantha felt it. The shift, the murmur, the sense that something was being whispered when she left the room. The irony was unbearable. She had built this company to be the opposite of where she came from, and yet, here she was, at the top of a ladder that suddenly felt very familiar. Then came the real fracture. One afternoon, Priya stepped into her office without knocking, face pale, jaw tight. "Sam," she said, "we need to talk." Samantha looked up, immediately alert. "What's wrong?" "It's about the operations associate you passed over last week." "The one with the MBA?" "Yes. And 5 years at Deloitte. You marked him not a cultural fit." "Because he wasn't. His energy didn't match the team." Priya paused. "Or because you saw some of Michael in him?" Samantha stared at her, long, hard. "I'm not sabotaging hires out of paranoia," she said quietly. "I'm not accusing you," Priya replied, gentler now. "I'm just asking if maybe your past is clouding your judgment, because people are starting to notice patterns." Samantha swallowed. There it was again. That line between protection and projection. And she couldn't tell which side she was on anymore. That night, she walked into her building's elevator and ran into an old friend, Julia, someone she hadn't seen in years. They hugged, caught up briefly. "You look like a boss," Julia smiled. "Running the world?" Samantha laughed half-heartedly, trying not to lose it first. Julia tilted her head. "You always used to say you wanted to build something that felt human." "I did. And now?" Samantha didn't answer, because that word, human, suddenly felt fragile, like something she'd stopped protecting somewhere along the climb. Back in the office, she finally replied to Michael's second application. A short email, neutral tone. "Michael, your background has been noted. No decisions have been made at this time. It wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. It was a stall." But in her heart, Samantha knew something had changed. Not with him, but with her. The next morning, she opened her office door to find an envelope slipped underneath. Not emailed, not typed, just folded paper, handwritten, with her name on the front. She unfolded it. Read it once, then again. "I'm not asking for a job anymore. I'm asking for understanding. Because I think you know what it's like now, to sit at the top and still feel like no one sees you. We never came to a compromise, Samantha. And maybe we never will. But you taught me something I never admitted then. Power doesn't protect you. It just isolates you in more expensive rooms. Michael." Samantha stared at the paper, her breath shallow, her fingers trembling just slightly. He was wrong about many things, but maybe not about that. She stood there for a long time, not victorious, not defeated, just tired. because the thing no one told her about rising from the ashes was how easy it was to mistake smoke for strength. Some stories don't end with revenge, or closure, or poetic justice. Sometimes they end with a mirror. And the hardest thing to face is who you've become after the climb. Samantha Lee thought she wanted to prove she was better than the man who once dismissed her. But what she discovered was harder, that the real battle wasn't with him. It was with the part of herself that swore she'd never become like him, but quietly wondered if she already had. So maybe the question isn't whether power corrupts. Maybe it's whether we notice when it does. Now it's your turn. And remember, there's always a quiz at the end. Be the first to answer. Don't let someone else steal your spotlight. And before you go, let us know where in the world you're watching from. Drop your comments and tell us which moment hit you hardest. Was it the job rejection, the stairwell letter, or the handwritten note under her door? Like this video if it made you reflect. Subscribe now and hit the bell so you don't miss the next story. Because here at Fiction Echoes, we don't just tell stories. We hold up a mirror. And sometimes, what stares back changes everything. Quiz. How many times did we mention the name Samantha Lee in this story?